After falling behind 2-1 in the Western Conference Finals, the Spurs responded in Game 4 with a defensive masterpiece. They held the Thunder to just 82 points in a blowout win, only days after it seemed like they didn't have an answer for their offense. So what changed? Did the Spurs catch a lucky break? Or did head coach Mitch Johnson and his staff make all the right adjustments and suddenly flip the series? In today's video brought to you by PrizePicks, we're going to break down everything. On the first play of the game, OKC emptied the wings to run a 1-5 pick and roll. Wemby guards the ball, shows his length, and lets Isaiah Hartenstein roll into his patented push shot, which was a lot different from what we were seeing before. In Game 1, Wemby sat back in deep drop coverage, playing in between the ball and the roll to take away the paint from both, which buys Castle time to recover and force Shai into a tough look. In Game 2 though, the Thunder had a counter. Shai's gonna turn the corner and attack that space, while Hartenstein rolls right into Wemby to set a Gortat screen and create a lane. Help has to come from the perimeter, and Wallace is left with a wide open 3. It was the exact same thing in isolation. Hartenstein makes sure he gets in between Wemby and the ball and essentially plays offensive lineman, blocking him from helping on Shai as he gets to his spots in the mid-range. This not only helped Shai get free as a scorer, it gave him deeper access to the paint, which meant their best shooters could move into open space, play off the catch, and get the Spurs into rotation more consistently. To open Game 4, we saw a shift in Wemby's approach. He's not going to let Hartenstein get in between him and the ball. Then when a screen is set, he's going to completely prioritize Shai first, not letting him turn the corner and find open space. That meant his pickup point was a little bit higher. Instead of a deep drop, he was closer to the level of the screen and a higher drop. And it was only when Shai picked up his dribble or ran into traffic that he'd recover to get a hand up on the roll. Here's another example. Hartenstein sets a screen near half court and Wemby's up at the 3-point line. When Shai starts to drive, he parks directly in front of that driving lane, not trying to cover both at the same time. Castle recovers, so Wemby gets back to the roll, and iHeart has to sneak it up over his contest. The Thunder kept going back to it. Like clockwork, Shai turns the corner, runs into Wemby, has nowhere to go, and uses Hartenstein as a scoring outlet. But he's not a volume scorer. He can hit the push shot. It's not meant to be a go-to option though. In less than 5 minutes, he had already attempted 6 of them. Not exactly the ideal shot diet they're looking for. So in the second half, Shai tried to get more aggressive, coming off of screens and hunting for his own shot. Wemby just didn't let him, sliding his feet and using his length to completely take away the paint. Because Wemby's up a bit higher, picking up the ball at the 3-point line, Shai tried to use his speed to get downhill, but he just couldn't find a way to consistently beat the drop coverage. When the Thunder went to their 5-out lineups, we saw another adjustment. Instead of matching Wemby up with Caruso, they kept him low, meaning he'd just guard whoever was in the weak side corner. In the first 3 games, a big part of their strategy was to put Wemby on Caruso, then let him freely roam away to protect the paint. They were comfortable leaving Caruso on an island and letting him take as many shots as he wanted. The problem was that he got unconsciously hot. He was attempting 10 threes every 36 minutes and making 61% of them. 21 points a game. That's what he was giving OKC as a result of the way he was being guarded. They also used him to attack Wemby. He set plenty of high ball screens, knowing that Wemby would drop back and leave him all by himself on the pop. More importantly though, remember that's when he was in a deeper drop, so Shai could turn the corner, attack him in space, and go right at him to create a shot for himself in the mid-range. In Game 4, Wemby still found himself on Caruso at times, but only when he was in the corner. By switching matchups behind the play to keep him low, he was always underneath the basket, which creates a couple of advantages. For one, he's no longer forced to defend the primary action, so you don't run the risk of him getting pulled up to the ball. The bigger advantage though is that because he's always low, he's always in position to help at the rim. The Thunder tried to attack this by putting Jared McCain in the weak side corner. It's harder to help when you've got an elite shooter to worry about. Wemby's ground coverage is so elite though. He can help in the paint and still get a hand up on a 3. The Spurs simply trusted him to execute. He was put in a position to make reads, and he did a great job of recognizing when to help, when to stay home. Then if McCain tried to drive, he could move his feet to protect the paint without needing extra help, really limiting his ability to create advantages off the catch. All that's to say, it didn't matter who OKC put in the corner. He stayed low. He was always in position to help on the ball and protect the paint. Meanwhile, the Spurs also switched up how they brought help from other spots on the court, going with an entirely different approach against Shai. Before we get into that, I want to take a second to thank PrizePicks for sponsoring today's video. If you know you can play responsibly and you have the means to do so, PrizePicks is America's #1 app for sports picks. So if you're looking for a place to get in on this series, use code HMA and get started. With the way the Spurs are defending, Game 5 is gonna come down to Shai. Can he force the issue and beat them as a shot maker? I think he'll be more aggressive than ever, and an aggressive Shai is a walking 30 ball, so we're taking him for more than 29.5 points. On the other side, I'm not sure what adjustments to expect. What I do know is that Fox is averaging 8.5 rebounds in this series. I like him for more than 2.5 in Game 5. And it's that simple. Find the stat you want, pick more or less, and you've got your lineup. If you sign up for Prize Picks with code HMA and play $5, you get $50 in lineups instantly. So either download the app or click the link in the description to get started, and let me hear your picks down in the comments. A big theme for the Spurs to open this series was keeping Shai away from the middle of the floor. Anytime he tried to play one-on-one, he was staring down a wall of defenders. The idea was to get the ball out of his hands and force the other guys to beat them, which OKC did by attacking them with their spacing. By putting your best shooter one pass away, deep on the wing, it's tough to bring help to the middle of the floor without conceding a high percentage opportunity. For the most part, that meant starting Shai up top, flattening the baseline, and putting Jared McCain on the opposite wing. Once Shai draws help to the middle and kicks it to McCain, he demands a closeout, then he's skilled enough with the ball to attack the paint and create off the catch. By simply aligning the floor in a certain way, it became nearly impossible for the Spurs to converge on Shai without giving up a great shot every time down. They tried zones, double teams. He made the right plays and the other guys took advantage. One way they did that was by attacking the middle of the floor with their movement. Because they know two are going to go to Shai up top, Caruso slips into a little pocket of space near the free throw line, then immediately throws an extra pass to Jalen Williams. That's easy team offense, and we saw a lot of it in Game 3. The Spurs load up early, then Caruso floats to the middle of the floor to connect the offense. This time he sets up a dribble handoff for McCain, who turns the corner, kicks it cross court, and Williams is once again left with a great look. This all comes back to their spacing. They've got their best shooter in the strong side corner, their second best creator one pass away on the opposite wing, and their best finisher on the weak side. When Shai draws two and gets the ball to Caruso in the middle, there's no way to bring help without risking a complete breakdown. So in Game 4, they switched it up. Instead of loading up on Shai early, they'd wait for him to start his drive, then have the closest help defender stunt at the ball before recovering to the three-point line. There's no spot-up jumper, no big opening to attack. The role guys had to create their own separation on drives and move the ball, which they didn't have much success doing. The goal on San Antonio's side was to still clog Shai's space without being forced to pick a poison. By stunting at the ball on drives, he might pick up his dribble early, but nobody's open. Take this play for example. Shai starts to attack the middle of the floor and Vassell stunts at the ball to turn him away, only for Castle to immediately stunt from the opposite direction and pick up a deflection while Wemby rotates from the opposite corner to not let Williams get an open three. They've taken away Shai's drive without deliberately funneling the ball out of his hands to an open man. For the most part, it felt like OKC's best option was to clear as much space as possible for Shai to play from the middle of the floor, to which the Spurs would do everything in their power to make him win over the top of their shell. This is very similar to what the Mavs did against him in 2024. They packed the paint, made it tough for him to get to the nail without putting two on the ball, then made him beat them as a middle of the floor shot maker. He absolutely torched them in that series, scoring 32 points a game on 60% true shooting. But it wasn't quite enough to will his team to victory. There were plenty of reasons. One though was that this style of defense took his teammates out of the half-court offense, at times forcing him to be the entire offense by himself. That's what the Spurs did in Game 4. Instead of anybody but Shai, it was don't let Shai get anybody involved. But they made things a lot tougher for him individually. Firstly, they have Victor Wembanyama. As long as they keep him low and he's always at the basket, Shai's going to be turned away from the idea of driving, by default settling for further and further shots. Secondly, they have Stephon Castle, who played Shai individually about as well as you possibly can. That started away from the ball. He was physical and staying attached to his body through every action to avoid switches and make him work to get a touch. Then it's almost like he was built in a lab to pressure the ball and just stay glued to Shai like his shadow, which especially stood out when Shai played the point. He was meeting him in the backcourt, pressing up and being physical, which he can do because he's got the tools. Not only is he super quick, allowing him to cut off different angles, he's strong enough to absorb bumps, and most importantly has elite deceleration, meaning he can stick with all of Shai's moves while remaining perfectly on balance with the size and length to contest a jumper. All that's to say, despite playing a style of defense that forces Shai to get his game off, he didn't. He had just 19 points, shot 6 of 15 from the field, and turned the ball over 4 times. Remember, that was without the Spurs forcing the ball out of his hands. They weren't overcommitting and funneling passes to specific guys. They guarded everybody, forced role players to create their own offense, which is really where the absence of Jalen Williams and AJ Mitchell became a major issue for the Thunder. Those are their best creators outside of Shai. They're often relied on to set up the offense or even create advantages from a standstill against more extreme coverages, like what the Spurs have been showing to OKC. Without them, other guys were forced to play out of role, handling the ball and initiating more than they're used to. That played a role in the Thunder racking up 20 turnovers, their most in a game from this entire season. When it came to the other guys, the Spurs' approach was simple. By keeping Wemby low, they weren't worried about mismatches and switched everything across the board to keep a body in front of the ball and not let their best shooters get open off of screens. That's not to say the Thunder didn't get any open threes. They got their fair share and couldn't make any of them. Anytime a team shoots 18% from 3, some type of luck is involved. Sometimes you just go cold and they couldn't buy a bucket. However, the shot quality is what's important. Instead of getting a bunch of open spot-ups, they were forced to shoot over closeouts, on the move. It was just tougher. Which takes me back to Shai. As long as the Spurs play this style of defense, if the Thunder are gonna win this series, it's gonna come from his shot making. Game 5 in OKC is a huge opportunity for him. Can he navigate the stunts, high drop coverage, and find a way to push this offense over the top? He didn't in Game 4. The Spurs held them to 82 points, blew them out to even the series at 2 games apiece. And it was the definition of a defensive masterclass. Remember when I said that Caruso had been averaging 21 points a game and killing them from 3? He only attempted 1 shot in Game 4. 1 shot. Jared McCain, Cason Wallace, and Jalen Williams, who had all been X factors to start the series, were complete non-factors. Overall, their bench scoring was night and day. After dropping 76 in Game 3 and actually winning OKC the game, they scored just 34 points in Game 4, less than half. Between that and Shai's lack of production, the team couldn't score. Heading into the conference finals, they had a playoff offensive rating of 128.3, 15 points better than average and one of the best we've ever seen through 2 rounds. The Spurs did a great job of holding them in Game 1. Then they exploded in Games 2 and 3, seemingly figuring things out. Only for the Spurs to hold them to by far their worst offensive performance of the season in Game 4. Plenty of factors played into that. Mitchell and J-Dub's injuries, a cold shooting night. But at its core, this game was about the Spurs making all of the right adjustments, and for the first time, the Thunder not having the counters. They turned the ball over. They couldn't create clean looks from 3. They couldn't get to the rim. And most importantly, Shai didn't deliver as a shot maker. The only question left to ask is, who takes control in a pivotal Game 5?